Emergency Management Chief Herman Andaya resigned Thursday, a day after defending not enacting the emergency sirens at the monstrous wildfires approached Maui. Here's Andaya's response when pressed by reporters Wednesday.
Had we sounded the siren that night, we're afraid that people would have gone Mauka. And if that was the case, then they would have gone into the fire. And so that is the reason why our protocol has been to use WEA and EAS. By the way, I should also note that there are no sirens Mauka or on the mountainside where the fire was spreading down. So even if we sounded the siren, it would not have saved those people on the mountainside.
Maui's mayor said Thursday the embattled emergency had stepped down because of health reasons.
Meanwhile, the state's Attorney General Ann E. Lopez announced yesterday that she will task a third-party private organization to investigate how local authorities deployed response to the fires, which has killed 111 people. In a statement, she wrote, quote, "Having a third party conduct the review will ensure accountability and transparency and reassure the people of Hawaii that all of the facts will be uncovered. The information collected will be used to assess the performance and emergency preparedness as we are constantly looking for ways to improve." Unfortunately, I don't think a third-party investigation is going to make the people who lost family members, lost friends, and obviously the people who are no longer with us feel much better about the outcome of this situation. And the fact that this emergency chief is supposedly resigning for health reasons is an obvious lie. I don't think anybody believes that. And not to mention when he was trying to answer that question about failing to push the emergency alarm system, he had a bureaucrat step in and try to basically CYA his answer, which is another despicable act, in my opinion, because this guy should have had to answer to the Hawaiian people. He should have had to explain his utter failure to save these lives. He should have explained why he really believes that pushing that alarm wouldn't have saved anyone. And instead, we had somebody trying to run cover for him and prevent him from being held accountable. And now he just gets to walk off into the sunset after resigning for these supposed health reasons. This entire scenario is utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's very clear that it's not health reasons as the cause for him resigning. It's very clear that it's because he didn't alert folks that the fires were coming. And for them to say that we broadcast on the news and we tweeted about it, there were news and internet broadcasts that the fires were coming, that's not enough for people who don't have the TV on or aren't looking at their phone. The sirens are there for a reason, and it's because they are necessary to warn people of imminent danger. There were people who were jumping into the ocean to avoid the wildfires. There's a reason the sirens are there, and it's so people can run away from the fires so that they are not burned or trapped in their home and then burned. This is now the deadliest wildfire in history. And there are people who lost their lives, family members. They've lost their town, they've lost their homes. And the idea that $700 in compensation for the people in Maui is enough is ridiculous and absurd. And it's not just a problem in Maui. There are people who are members of indigenous communities in Canada, and they are victims of the wildfires burning their homes, and they're losing their lives and family members as well. But in the specific case of Maui, if you're someone who is responsible for that emergency response and you botched it as badly as they did, take accountability. That's the least you can do. It is so unsatisfying for the people who have lost family members and their homes, their history, their entire town, for you to say, I'm resigning for health reasons. That is such a cop-out, and it's so sad that an elected official that made a mistake that cost so many lives is just saying, I'm resigning for health reasons. The fact that they think they can get away with that and that will be okay and satisfactory is absolutely ridiculous.
Exactly. And this guy, Herman Andaya, is not the only one to blame. It's whoever appointed him to this position. It probably goes all the way up to the governor of Hawaii, because this guy was clearly not qualified for the position. According to Honolulu Civil Beat, this guy had no expertise in emergency management. He was trained in political science and law. He had no formal education in disaster preparedness or response. and had never held a full-time job related to emergency management in his entire career. His only qualification, apparently, was being chief of staff to the mayor at the time, Alan Arakawa. And he managed to beat out 40 other applicants for this job back in 2017. So to think that he would, despite having no experience in emergency preparedness, might be the most qualified candidate is ludicrous. Obviously, there was some kind of political favor system going on here. And to your point about the sirens, Jess, Hawaiians know what those sirens mean. They're prepared to react in response to those sirens. I remember back in 2016, 2017, when there were concerns that North Korea was going to launch a missile strike at Hawaii when Trump was in office, there were so many news segments where they had CNN reporters on the ground at these emergency siren locations, at these bunkers, explaining what the protocol would be if a missile were in fact launched. And that was 5+ years ago that they were talking about this emergency response system. And then to have an actual emergency and not use it is unforgivable.
Yeah, absolutely unforgivable. And the fact that you have Josh Green also defending the failure to sound the sirens, also ridiculous. Josh Green, I think, is culpable, and that's why he's defending the failure of Andaya to sound the sirens. It sounds like Andaya and his office were responsible for this. So him stepping down, claiming it's for health reasons, obviously not the case. But the fact that you have other people that defended the decision before he stepped down suggests that we really need to look into all of the government in Maui and all of their role. And so I hope the investigation actually is thorough, because this should be prevented in the future, not just to the extent of them alerting people of the emergency, but preparing for the emergency, making sure that the land in Hawaii is not sold to people who are using non-native crops that dry out the land, that put everyone living on Maui at risk. It's absolutely ridiculous that we got into this scenario in the first place, where a wildfire could get this bad on an island like Maui, when we have forests in California that are burning, coming towards towns, and people are able to escape in time. They're able to manage the fire so that we don't lose as many lives as we did in Maui. It suggests that there's something very wrong going on that requires more preparedness than just sounding the sirens minutes before the fires end up getting to these towns, where there's a lot of people there that haven't gotten the alert through the internet or through the television. There's a lot of preparedness, not just the sirens, that they failed to do. And it makes sense a lot that Andaya was not someone that was well prepared for this role in the first place, that his background is political science and being chief of staff to the mayor, that prepares you to be the head or the chief of emergency response in a place like Maui, where there's the potential of tsunamis, wildfires, hurricanes. It's not a place where, you can appoint anyone to that role. You need someone who's prepared and familiar with the topography and familiar with the threats and familiar with the alert and the response that's necessary to save people's lives in a scenario like this. It's just absurd that we have people that are appointed to these positions when they should honestly run for them.
Yes, and then there's also this water official, Kaleo Manuel. He refused to release water resources to landowners so that they could protect their homes from the fact that this dry grass was invading so much of the area and was susceptible to wildfires. His college degree is in quote-unquote Hawaiian studies, whatever that means, and he has said that water should be revered rather than used and should only be shared after true conversations about equity. Well, clearly there was equity with this wildfire that spared nobody outside of sheer dumb luck from some homes that didn't burn down. So clearly there's a problem in the bureaucratic management of the land in Hawaii, of the resources in Hawaii, and there's a problem with people who are unqualified for their positions being appointed, which is why, again, I think that this probably is going to go much higher up in terms of what this third-party investigation might possibly reveal. We also know that Hawaiian Electric knew that its power lines posed a hazard to the region. They spent practically nothing on wildfire prevention while spending tons of money on quote-unquote renewable energy. Renewable energy, I think, is a worthy goal, especially when it's pursued by private companies. But if you're also not going to make sure that your company is preventing the potential destruction of the land on which you're operating, that's a serious problem as well.
Yeah, there are a lot of folks who made decisions economically speaking when it comes to who is the land being sold to, who's getting a loan for the land to be a farmer on the island of Maui. Is it someone who's familiar with the land, who's going to do a good job cultivating it, or is it someone who's going to return a high, profit over a 10-year period to the bank that gives them a loan so they feel safe about that short-term profit and that investment? Or are they going to actually think about what's good for the island of Hawaii, what's good in the long term economically for the state? Probably not. We need to change a lot of things about how we run our economy, not just in Hawaii, on the mainland as well. When we consider what is sustainable economically, we need to be thinking about more than 10 or 15-year returns on investment. We need to be thinking a little bit deeper about what's good for the economy in the long run, especially when we have this risk of dry land and wildfires. We need to also be thinking not just what a good return on investment is when it comes to tourism in a place like Hawaii, what's actually good for the economy for the people living in Hawaii, not just the people who come and visit for a few days or a week out of the year. And so the reliance on tourism is something that actually created a lot of droughts across not just Maui, but Hawaii as a whole, to the point where people who live there year round are saying, don't come here. We don't have enough water to go around. That's an entire mismanagement of the local economy on Maui as an island. It's not just about the short-term response. It's about much longer policy failures and just poor economic decision making.
I know that we'll be watching as well to see what comes of President Joe Biden's visit to Maui. He previously offered a rather trite no comment when he was caught vacationing at Rehoboth Beach and was asked about the Maui wildfires. And I know that rightfully a lot of people were really angry about the fact that he couldn't even muster up just a few words of sympathy. Now the $700 payment, it feels like a slap in the face. So I'm very curious to see how he's going to answer for that when he actually goes to visit. More Rising after this.